Good day, everyone. My name is Jared. So actually, decided to do this webinar on this very evergreen topic, new launch versus resale. The main reason is because in my last few years, every time when I go for a buy consult, I always get asked the same question. Hey, Jared, I got $2 million. I'm looking to explore my property purchase. Should I be going for a new launch? But then potentially I know I need to rent for a couple of years versus a resale, which I get to move it immediately. Or if I'm an investor, I get to collect rent immediately. So a lot of buyers crowded with so much information online today. So my purpose on today's agenda is really to give you the truth that nobody tells you. I tend to be very analytical in my presentation, so I go down deep dive into numbers and explain to you why most buyers find they pick the wrong side. Which one actually makes the most money? If you look at past transaction data, why do some condos are actually more profitable than others? Is it because they're inside the MRT or because they are nearby a certain school? What actually drives profitable transactions? And last but not least, beneath all the show flat hype where property get blasted by a lot of other agents, what I want to show you today in today's webinar is the numbers that do not hide. Okay, so if you are a numbers person, I'm very confident that you'll get to enjoy this webinar a lot. But other than that, feel free, if you feel like this topic is actually something that you're really familiar with and then you want to just quickly browse through, feel free to watch this webinar at 1.5x or 2x speed. Just give you upfront first the characteristics of resale condo. This should not be unfamiliar to everyone. Just quickly touch on one of the most important things. For resale condo, one of the main drivers that a lot of consider is the factor that we get to see, feel, touch, smell here. So a lot of buyers, they are unable to make a purchase without seeing the actual thing. This is totally understandable. If you're going to buy a future home, you definitely want to make sure that you can feel how the view is going to be, or walk personally to the MRT station to have a feel of how convenient is your place going to be. And sometimes at a certain level, you want to get to make sure that you have certain light exposure coming to your house. So these are the things in the new build segment you cannot get to have the certainty to commit to. But then for a resale, you would actually get to have that. And then a lot of buyers, they see property purchase as a need. So the need to move in immediately because of certain time constraints, because of certain family planning, this need supersedes whatever kind of a capital appreciation growth or a brand new apartment that a family needs. The need to move it immediately is one of the main drivers of why people look at resale condo. Some buyers, they prefer to look at renovated homes to minimize their renovation outlay. So you actually have the choice. Some homes on the market, in the resale market, they are generally renovated in the nature. So they actually have to spend a lot on renovation. More choices. So in a very supply crunch new launch market, what buyers tend to find is they don't have a lot of options. For example, if you are a District 19 buyer today, the truth is you don't have much options. So in today's context, you either have Chuan Park or only other Gothic apartments. We don't really have a lot of options. And so if you're an investor, one of the most common requirements when I say investor is they hope to actually receive immediate rental income. They find that going to the in-build segment and having to have a blackout period for 4 years without collecting any cash flow actually is not a perceived good investment. So those buyers who actually desire for immediate rental income for a positive cash flow immediately, they are looking at resale condos. And one of the important effect is the despite effect on pricing. Today, if you go into the new launch market and then you go into Property Guru and see how different the prices are PSF wise, you find that there's actually quite a big disparity in terms of new launch and resale pricing. So a lot of buyers, they feel like it's safer to buy something on the cheaper side. That's why they go for resale condo. Or more potential is something that a lot of buyers they also look for, especially if they are looking at those older condos, say for example, Wing Plaza, Panna Valley, etc. etc. These are the condos where buyers look at which are future or more potential. Resale condos tend to be also a little bit bigger in nature, so they used to build a lot bigger sizes condos in the past because that back then PSF was on the lower side. First, in today's launch market, what you will find is that sizes have been becoming smaller and smaller. So if you are a family who really space is your number one main driver at motivator for the move, what you find that this group of people will naturally be motivated to come into the resale sector. For resale condos also, because they come from eras of the past, could be the 1990s, 2000s, you'll find that actually a lot of these old condos have very interesting conceptness of their layouts, very differing from what you see in the new launch market today. So they're actually quite different difference in terms of its positioning in the market. And last but not least, in terms of prices, they are generally more negotiable because you're actually negotiating with a seller, not a developer. So usually, depending on urgency of the seller, sometimes they are more motivated to sell. That's where you are a buyer or an investor or looking for a good deal. This is probably where the opportunity is. Let's go on to some of the characteristics of the new launch condo. You might probably hear this from many sources already and probably observe for condo performance in the past. What you'll find that for new launch condos, generally, they're a lot more attractive from a capital appreciation point of view. There's this very important concept called first mover advantage, which is something that you get to enter into a project at the very lowest cost possible direct from developer, and you depend on the developer to stage the prices up based on developer staging strategy. As the sales of the project continue to gradually increase, the developer actually increases the price gradually, and that's where the buyers in the first mover stage get to enjoy that benefit. So that's what we call multiple rounds of appreciation, which normally new launch condos get to enjoy. For new launch condos, generally you have more equipped with more modern facilities, so that's generally more popular with tenants, and they come with better design, architecture, and facilities. One of the main important things is that for new build condos, if you are generally more cash flow strapped, you are more tighter on cash element, what you'll find that for new launch condos is very attractive is because you can use your CPF to pay for the stamp duties. Compared to resale, which you can't, you can actually save up about 5% of cash into the new launch segment. So interestingly, this is one of the main factors why investors actually skew towards the new launch segment. Of course, buying a brand new apartment, there's no need to reno, so you save on quite a bit of cash to do your renovation. 1 year of delayed installment, I'll go deeper later into the progressive payment mechanism that allows buyers to actually delay a huge chunk of their installment and push it down to the later years. So you actually have a very easy front load portion in your early years of your holding of your assets. Seller stamp duty is also very just nice into blackout period. What that means is in today's context, our seller stamp duty is 4 years, and that's generally tied together with the time that a new launch condo is being built. The construction period is generally for 4 years. So the SSD period ties in with the construction period, which is a very good thing because as a buyer, when this blackout period is over, it's also just nice that your seller stamp duty period is over. So at that point of time, you could also explore whether you want to sell, you want to rent, or you want to move in. So there's actually a lot of different kind of options. And of course, most important thing is that in the new launch segment, you start off with a brand new 99-year lease. All right, that is actually a lot of buyers who are looking for a good exit strategy and they are not worried about lease decay. The new build segment is actually able to give you that. Mentioned about progressive payment earlier. What I want to do is to very deep dive later on slides to give you down the hardcore numbers. Generally for COV, so there's no COV for new build. The banks and the valuations, they normally match according to the developer's selling price. So there's no worry about having to top up cash for your property. Unlike the resale market, so the sellers are usually maybe asking for a certain price, but the valuation is this much. So the difference is the cash over valuation, where if you are incurring that, then that will be the additional cash outlay that you have to prepare. For a new build segment, there's a defect warranty period where a lot of buyers like. That basically essentially gives the buyer the assurance and the certainty to hold on to their asset. For 1 year, they have the warranty that the developer is liable to make good any defects. As an investor, if I'm looking to rent my apartment out, I'm actually protected because I don't need to worry about incurring any additional cost if I handle any defects in the condo.